Good evening, everybody. My name is Tina Black, and I'm joined by Christine Zielinski and Nuala Gilday, and we are your Empowered Salon Leader Coaches. And we are so excited because we feel as if we are on the verge of a leadership revolution. We recently had the opportunity to give an incredible workshop with many of you that were in the audience at the Pennsylvania Hair Show. And thanks to Tracy with salontraining.com, we were able to pull this incredible workshop off live in person. And of course, you're hearing us on this incredible recording. And we wanted to share with you what we believe is the future of communication. What we really desire, not only in our own relationships with our team members, but also for the people that we coach, is how to confront conflict with compassion. So let me ask you this question. How many of you get really frustrated training your team members over and over and over again because they just aren't getting it? I think we have a lot of hands that are probably up right now, and you're tuning in and saying, yes, that's me. I have so many items that I want to share with you. But the biggest thing that I want to ask you, do you ever feel like a broken record? What is one of those things that you feel like a broken record about? Go ahead and put that down in the chat. We want to hear what it is that you feel like a broken record. One of the things for me is about retail. And I'm still not there yet. I'm still a broken record. And so getting my schools and my salons to sell retail. And so if you know the magic potion with that, confronting conflict with compassion, please let me know for sure. I'm in the game with you. And Nuala, I know that you coach so many salon owners and leaders across the nation. What is the one thing that you keep seeing over and over again that people that you're coaching are really frustrated with?
Yeah, they're frustrated that their team doesn't want to work anymore. And they don't want to work that 40-hour week. And for me, it's, you've also got to change as the business owner, as the salon owner. If you're saying and asking them to work more hours and they're not, you've got to change as well. So it works both ways, Tina. You're a broken record to them and they're a broken record to you.
Absolutely. And how about you, Christine? What is one of those things that you feel like a broken record about as well with your team and people that you're coaching?
Well, I think what I see, the frustration I see is in my senior stylists, they feel like a broken record. So trying to help coach them through that process, because when they're teaching their apprentices and they turn around to me and they say, how many times do I have to tell them? And isn't it true that I think that about them and then they think that about the apprentices, right? So I think it's just that thread all the way through.
100%. And something that I've always taught my leaders is that, is it a can't or a won't? Meaning they can't do it because it might be a training issue, or a won't do it because of an attitude issue, right? And I actually took the liberty to show you what a record player looks like, because I'm thinking many of you listening to this may have no idea what a record is. I remember as a young girl listening to my favorite album, which is John Denver, and I would put the record on, walk out of the room, and hear my favorite song. Thank God I'm a country boy. Thank God I'm a country boy. Thank God I'm a country boy. And I would be like, oh man, that record broke again. So I'd walk back in the room, move that needle ever so slightly so that I could hear the rest of my favorite song. But isn't that just like our people? They want us to pick up that needle of our own leadership. All they want to know is, do we care about them? Can they trust us? And can we help them? And isn't that really what we all want anyway? And so as a leader, it truly is a sacred responsibility. And interesting enough is we have actually been getting certified in many different courses as the Empowered Salon Leader Coaches, so we can be prepared for this leadership revolution. And one of the courses that we're getting certified in is the Conversational Intelligence Conversation, which is written by Judith Glasser. And something that she said really stuck out to me. And it means, I'm going to read this from the book. The premise of conversational intelligence is this: to get to the next level of greatness depends on the quality of our culture, which depends on the quality of our relationships, which depends on the quality of our conversations. Everything happens through conversations. You know, I was reading an incredible article in Indeed.com, and we use Indeed quite a bit to recruit people to work in all of our companies. And they said 2 of the top reasons why people will quit employment. One is they want a better relationship with their manager. And the second one is they want more feedback. You heard it right. They want more feedback. And here's the thing. Do you have a feedback system in your company? And I remember there was a time when I did not have a system, and I wondered why people weren't asking for feedback. Well, that's because I didn't have a system. And I remember one of my team members, she's like, oh, how am I doing and how could I do better? And I was like, whoa, this is incredible. We need to make this a system so that everybody asks these questions. And so we called it Feedback Fridays back then. So every Friday, you would go to your leader and you would say, how am I doing? How could I do better? And that was the start of our feedback culture that we had set up. So do you have a system? And the most important question is your system working? And something that we do in our workshops is we share best practices so that you can come up with great systems. I know I, for one, and all of our salons, we have 4 salons now, 5 schools, is that every year we relook at some of these systems and say, are they working? And if not, why not? What can we do to shift and change that written system? You know, we train on the 5 levels of leadership, and the 5 levels are this. 1 is position. 2 is permission. 3 is production. 4 is people development. And 5 is pinnacle. Now, of course, we all want to get to the pinnacle stage, but you have to grow through every single one of these levels. And the level that I kept getting stuck on for years was the 2nd level, permission. I didn't realize that I needed to learn how to build appropriate, solid relationships with my team so that I could gain permission. So what's the secret? How do we gain permission? Influence. Leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. So how do we gain influence? So many people that I talk to really struggle with this area. Connect. The way you gain influence is by connecting. Here's the problem, that I was a corrector and not a connector. I wanted to jump right to level 3 of leadership, and that is productivity. I mean, come on, we got bills to pay, right? And so I've learned over the years how to be a better connector. See, here's the problem. I was immature, I was insecure, and focused on my own agenda. Interesting enough, so we're also getting certified in an incredible program by Dr. Robert Cialdini, the 7 Principles of Influence. Dr. Cialdini is the godfather of influence. The first principle is called the principle of liking. Liking, principle of liking. Here's what I thought. I thought all the years as a leader that I had to try to get my people to like me. I had it all wrong. All I needed to do was show my people, my clients, how much I like them. And so I've shifted my focus. I've shifted the way that I connect with people. Here's the problem as a leader. I was more of a consultant to them than a coach. After thousands of dollars that I've spent on myself, all 3 of us have, learning how to be a better coach, we've realized that if you cannot coach, you cannot lead. You see, if you cannot coach, you will not know how to connect. So Nuala is going to share with you that connection, thank God, is actually more of a skill than a natural talent. Thanks, Nuala.
Thank you so much, Tina. I know we had the great pleasure of doing this workshop a few weeks ago. It was actually 2 weeks ago today. Can you believe it? At the PA Beauty Expo with Tracy. But I love that we're going through it again and delivering it here, because like anything else, it's repetition. And, we've all been communicating since this workshop, and it's just learning how to continue to connect with people. And I love that what you suggested, Tina, and you said that you had those feedback Fridays, and that, keeping the system updated. Sometimes we put these systems in place, but we don't update them. And, I think it's really important. So when I found this out, the first time I found that connection is more skill than natural talent, it was by a book by John C. Maxwell. And the book is called Everyone Communicates and Few Connect. And when I found that out, I was kind of relieved, because, I had spent my career building relationships behind the chair. I was great at talking to people, but I wasn't necessarily connecting with people, and I wasn't building my communication skills. But I could talk as best as anybody else. So connecting with others is a skill that can be learned and developed, rather than an innate talent, which some people are naturally born with. So we see other people that are naturally born with that. And in John's book, Everyone Communicates, Few Connect, he identifies that there's 4 principles of connection. So as we have it here, so one is common ground, communication, credibility, and caring. And finding common ground with others in order to connect with them. What do I mean by that? This involves really understanding what the other person needs, desires, and what their perspective, and finding ways to relate to them on a personal level. Tina, you'd asked a great question a few months ago in our group. Is it personal or business? You know what I mean? And the key is to cultivate a common ground mindset. So if you don't have that in you, it is personal. Everything we do is personal. Anyone can learn to connect better, because connecting is a choice, and it's a choice that we make. And credibility is a crucial aspect of connection, and it is built through consistency, competency, and character. So to connect with others, it's important to demonstrate that you are trustworthy and reliable. Caring for others in order to build strong connections is what your team is looking for. And they want to make sure that you're reliable, that you're showing up when you say you show up. And it involves showing empathy, kindness, and genuine interest in your teams. It's not just about the numbers. And this is another thing that I've heard you say, Tina, over these last couple of years. You don't talk to your team about numbers anymore. You're genuinely interested in their well-being. And overall, while some people may have this as a natural talent for connecting with others, it's possible for anyone to develop the skill set through intentional effort and practice. And we're going to be talking to you a little bit more about how you can continue on this journey with us at the end. So I do hope that we can include you in something that we're going to offer you at the end. And for the last part, Christine will actually talk about that. I hope that sounds good enough. So we're going to talk about relationships are the key to success. So the conversation is the relationship. This is one of the missing pieces. Investing the time, it will never happen unless you make a part of a system and process for your business and your team. As Tina said earlier, she put Feedback Fridays in as a system. So how are you connecting with your team? Is it weekly? Is it monthly? Is it quarterly? Is it annually? We know that connecting with your team quarterly and annually is way too long. It's just sometimes all it takes is a couple of minutes to connect with them, but we have to put it in by design and not by default. And for example, one-on-ones, so we're having one-on-ones. One-on-ones do not have to take an hour. They can take 15 minutes. I find that with more senior team members that you don't need an hour with them. In the beginning, the 30, 60, 90 days of an employee's first 90 days in your business, you definitely need to meet with them more often. So it's building that relationship. I used to find going for coffee, was really a good way to build connection. I personally had to drink coffee every day, and I loved to leave the salon every day. And it was something that, I treasured, was like those 30-minute coffee breaks. And I'd always try and bring somebody along with me. And then after a while, I realized it was a system that I could put into place, especially with my leadership and development team. These were the people that I needed to spend a little bit more time with, and we'd have coffee chats, and that worked out really well for me. And I never canceled with them unless it was an emergency. It's really important that your senior team members feel as important as those new team members that are coming on board. So I was a GM for a pretty big company, and a leadership team was already in place, and they were leading for quite a long time. And I remember in the beginning, no matter how hard I tried to connect with them, there was one person in particular whom I couldn't get through to. And this person was like a massive block of ice. It reminded me of the person in the Game of Thrones, that the wall, what was it called? Up in the north, where they went and chased the Night Walkers. So this is how thick this wall was. So after a very hostile meeting one day, it was a team leaders meeting, I asked this person if we could go for a chat. And I asked her if we could go for lunch. I had taken the bother to go and find out her favorite lunch spot in where we worked. And I said, I know you like eating at this place. I'd love to take you for lunch here. And she was kind of a little thrown back that I approached her in this way, but I wanted to get out of the space. And what I discovered was one-on-ones with this person was way more effective than talking to this person in a group or a team. And in the beginning, I didn't really start off the conversation with her very well. I was still learning a little bit better to better my communication. And it was before I read this book, Everyone Communicates If You Connect. And I had said, don't mistake my kindness for weakness, because I was a very kind leader. I always led with heart. But when I told her where I was coming from and why I was there, and I was there to help and serve, and I wasn't there for her job, I realized that this was really, really good. And this day, 13 years later, we're still, we talk to each other. So it was a matter of me. That's what I'm saying about common ground. It was a matter for me to find that piece that was missing in the relationship. So it's really important to find that missing piece and that missing link. So another missing piece that we have in the conversation is active listening. The ability, thanks for this photo. I just thought it was a little funny and I wanted to share, put a little humor in here. It's really important that we have fun when we're learning. But there's a reason why you've heard this expression before: God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. And it's active listening. This is another missing piece in this link: the ability to fully focus on what a person is saying, understand their perspective, and responding in a way that demonstrates, again, that empathy and respect. Active listening is often considered the most important skill when learning how to communicate effectively. Active listening is the ability to fully focus on what the other person is saying, understand their perspective, and respond in a way that demonstrates empathy, respect. It also involves in not only hearing the words being spoken, but also paying attention to those nonverbal cues, such as body language and tone of voice. By developing active listening skills, individuals can improve the ability to connect with others and build strong relationships. And in the beginning, when I was learning this, because I like to talk and I like to interrupt, and it was a skill that I knew that I had to change. And what I did was I'd write notes when I'm talking to people. Number one, I'd ask their permission. When you're sitting down on a one-on-one, is it okay to take some notes while we're talking? Because I would let them know that it was the best way that I could remember the conversations. And it's not one size fits all. You got to find something that works best for you. And what I was also doing was I was putting the letter L on the top of my notes and circling it. And the L was for me to shut and listen. And it was really important. So it shows that you respect the other person, and it promotes, clearer communication. And it also can help build stronger relationships. That if you've been in somebody's company that really, really listens to you, like, how well do you feel? you feel like they really, really care. So it's not about them, it's about you. And this is mastering this can take time and practice, but here are some little strategies that can help. So paying attention, like I said, and giving the person speaking your full attention, and avoid distractions such as your phone or other people in the room. I generally don't like to, if I'm having a one-on-one conversation with people, if it's not in the coffee shop, that's nothing important. I generally don't like having other people in the room. And I would always put my phone upside down, so I wouldn't be looking at the screen or pinging popped up. But I did read somewhere that that's also rude because it can vibrate on a tabletop. So then in the beginning, what I would do is I'd keep my phone in my bag somewhere else, and I wouldn't have it with us. And there was always a clock in the space, so I'd know the length of time that we were talking to. So using nonverbal cues such as eye contact, nodding, facial expressions to demonstrate that you're listening. So again, be fully present and engaged, and paraphrasing and summarizing, repeating what the person had said in their words, I found was really important. And sometimes they'd say, oh, no, that's not what I meant. And avoiding interruption. Again, this is a lesson that I had to learn, guys, a lot, and asking questions. It's okay to ask questions. Christine's going to get on here in a few minutes, and Christine is a master of asking questions, and I love learning from her. It's really important to clarify any unclear points or to gather more information. It's really important, and you can demonstrate, if it demonstrates that you're interested. And practicing empathy, again, I don't think that can ever grow old. And I think it's really important to do it authentically. So reflecting on your own listening habits, take some time to reflect on your own listening habits and identify areas where you feel you can improve. We all know where we can improve. And this could involve setting goals for yourself or seeking feedback from others. In the beginning, that was the way I did it. It was asking people to give me feedback, and I'd let them know, hey, this is something new I'm going to practice, please, and be open to that feedback. So if we can, I have another, just something to end here, and I love this quote. Connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment, and when they can derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. When you feel energized by the relationship and not depleted, you know that you had a good conversation. And Christine is going to finish this for us tonight.
Thank you so much, Nuala. I love this. I love this by Brené Brown. And, one of the things that Brené talks about always is vulnerability, right? And so this process of communication can be a vulnerable process. So as we go through this next step, I just want you to think about the fact is the vulnerability is strength, right? And so as we go through this next part, I want you to take that with you. And Nuala said, communication is usually not a natural talent. It's a skill that needs to be developed. And one of the things that we do is we in our industry is so focused and so passionate about skill. And we focus on being amazing colorists, and we focus on being so good behind the chair as hair cutters. And we spend hours upon hours. I don't know any industry, to be honest with you, that spends the time to develop themselves as we do. People that spend their days off going and taking classes for further development. I mean, it's incredible what our industry does and the passion that they have, or that we have. But one of the things that I realized in my time as being a leader is people didn't really develop how to communicate. And it's usually not a problem in the salon with cut and color. The problem usually lays within the communication. So whether it be in the communication with the client or whether it be communication with each other. Now, we're talking about having this conversation that deals with taking a conflict and getting through a conflict with compassion. So how do we do that, right? And so our objectives of this conversation is to, one, discover the truth, right? So there's always a story. There's always maybe my story and your story, but there's a story for sure. But there's then the truth. So we want to uncover what the truth is, right? We want to provoke learning, because when we're discovering truth and when we're discovering each other, we're always going to learn from each other. We want to tackle tough challenges because we know that we don't want to we don't want to bury these under a rug, because we know what's going to happen is they're going to come out later, right? And by doing this, what are we going to do is we're going to enrich our relationship, and the conversation is the relationship, right? So there's 8 principles of conflict. One is we want to master the courage to discover the truth. So we want to be able to have, and I think courage should be bold and it should be in capital letters, because I think a lack of courage is what discourages us from having these conversations. And it's fear of the unknown, fear of this uncertainty, right? And so it takes courage to go there. So put yourself aside and get into the conversation and make it real. So that really is about, how can we be more present with the person? How can we take our phones and everything and kind of put it aside, or maybe not even bring it with us? And how could we be more present with the person in front of us? Be here, prepared to be nowhere else. Like that is that you're fully engaged in the room with the person that you're communicating with. Confront your challenge today. So how many times do you say, and where do you have your conversations? I don't know about you, but I have my conversations in the shower. And I know the moment I have the one that's in the shower, I don't want to say to myself, Christine, do not come back in this shower with the same conversation, right? And I really will talk to myself like that. I know if I'm having the same conversation in the shower, then that's way too long. I've already missed the point of having it. So if you have that right now, I want you to just think about that. If you are listening to this right now and you're saying, oh boy, I had a conversation with myself in the shower about someone today, then guess what? You should be running to have that conversation, right? Because you're running to the relationship if you think about it. And so you want to confront that challenge today. Obey your heart. So when you're in the shower having the conversation, or when you're thinking about this, you're probably saying, I wish I could talk to this person. I want to have a conversation with them, right? And so you want to really follow your heart. Take responsibility for your emotions. So that is going into the conversation. You want to know that you're 100% responsible, and you're responsible for your emotions of how you react, not the other person. That's fully you, 100%. Let silence do the heavy lifting. So during this conversation, you don't want to be a savior. You really, sometimes what happens is when we're in a conversation, we talk too much and we want to save another person. So especially when we have to hold somebody accountable, it's like accountability doesn't have to be this top down, you're bad approach. And I think that's how we grow up. And so we're thinking, oh my goodness, we have to have this type of conversation. And that's not the way the conversation has to go. Remember, it is, if you can imagine 2 stick figures on a paper and an arrow pointing here and an arrow pointing at each other. This is the way the conversation goes. It's not the arrow down, it's the arrow connecting, right? And that is the type of conversation that we're having. Discover and be curious. So my mentor for years, when we coached together, she would always say, I would come with a problem and she'd say, Christine, put your curiosity hat on. And what she was saying is, don't assume. There's more to the story, right? So all confrontation is a search for the truth, right? It's a search for the unknown. It is under the assumption. So I know it's very easy to assume something with somebody, but we have to put that aside, because a lot of that has to do with our ego, right? We have to put that aside. And so I want you to think about a beach ball. And if you think about a beach ball, if you hold the ball, you could see the orange stripe, cannot see the red stripe, right? And so when we're having these conversations, what we want to do is we want to imagine that we're on the orange stripe or we're on the yellow stripe, and we can't see the other person's perspective because they're on the other side of the ball. And so how are we going to get to understand their perspective from our side of the ball, right? And so that's where you can think about how you can see their perspective. Common errors that happen in these conversations is, one, don't mix compliments with confrontation. And so we don't want to sugarcoat, because it's just not good. We don't want to go in yelling, but we don't want to go in with covering things up, because what we're doing, we're making that about us and not about the person we want to have the conversation with. So don't say, so how's it going? Right? So, because that is going to diminish the very thing that you want to talk about. It's inauthentic, and it puts the other person in the driver's seat. Now, remember, you're the one bringing this conversation into fruition. You know, you're the one that wants to have it. Don't write a script. So again, this is inauthentic. It doesn't really, remember I said, obey your heart. You can speak from your heart. It's okay to speak from your heart. Don't hide behind policy. And a lot of times we could do that. So this is really about how you feel about something or about something that happened. Don't save up and dump all at once. So I don't know if you've ever been in a relationship where somebody brings up something that happened 4 years ago, and they say, well, 4 years ago, you did this, right? We have to, if you didn't have the conversation, you got to let it go. You have to be willing. And this is something that I really learned. If I am willing to not have the conversation, then I have to be willing to let it go, right? That's on you if you don't have that conversation. So this is one of the most important things that I have learned when having a conversation. And that is I want to say, get in state. And what I mean by that is you want to set an intention, and you want to stop, and you want to I take 3 deep breaths. And trust me when I say, did I always do it this way? No. What I did is I used to go into the bathroom, I'd look in the mirror, and I'd get pissed off, and I'd start, and then I would go out and have the conversation. But you know what I found out I was still aggravated. And so when I started learning about meditation, I start learning about breathing. So now what I do is I take 3 deep breaths. And so I just breathe in, and then I breathe out. And then I set an intention for how do I want the outcome to be. And most definitely, it's always that I want to leave with an understanding of the person's view. I want the person to understand where I'm coming from, and I want to leave with a better relationship than I had even going into this conversation. So that's my intention, okay? And so it's important to set that intention before you go in. So this is what a conversation would look like. So you want to name an issue, right? So let's say, I don't know, I'm just going to make up an issue. Let's say somebody is always late, okay? And you know that this is an issue. You don't want to wait until 6 months down the road. You want to wait until maybe 2 or 3 times you notice a pattern, and then you say it. And then you select a specific example. It's really important to have a specific example. It's not hearsay. It's exactly when it happened, how it happened, right? Very, very specific. You want to describe your emotion. So what is your emotion around this? It could be that I'm really frustrated. It could be that, you're sad. It could be whatever emotion that you're feeling. Clarify why it's important to you and the team. So why would it be important that people are on time, right? Why? And if they aren't on time, who will it affect? Identify your contribution. So maybe your contribution to it, because you always, I just want to say this, and I want to underline it. You always have a contribution. And it could be, my contribution to this is I wasn't clear on my expectations. It could have been, my contribution to this is I should have had this conversation sooner. My contribution is, maybe that I didn't bring it up the past several times like I should have. So you have to state that, because you are responsible for your part in this relationship, right? And that is your part. So admit your weakness, right? Admit your part. Indicate your wish to resolve the issue. So why is it important to you? So if I said, to somebody that it's really important for you to be late, it affects the team. It has, it has an impact maybe on team morale. It has an impact on client retention, because if you're not here, it affects clients. And maybe my wish to resolve this is, I love you and I love what you contribute to the team. And it means the world to me that you show up on time. And it means the world to the team because the team loves you, right? And so you want to really let them know that you care about them. Invite your partner to respond. So now this is where, like Nuala said, we have to listen and we have to be quiet. And this is where we have to let silence do the heavy lifting. We have to allow them the opportunity to speak and let us know how they feel about the situation, and just silence. And I know you want to run in there. We all do. We want to help the person, but we got to just zip it, right? So being open for feedback. Now, this is hard. Tina talked about this in the beginning. And I think this is one of the hardest things, is accepting what the person is going to say. Now, maybe the person would say, I think this is unfair because so-and-so is late and they don't, like, we can go into many conversations about this. And then you have to take that responsibility on whatever is for you, right? And then the most important thing for you to do at that moment, regardless of what happens, is to say thank you. And I think this couldn't be more important for people to say when they get feedback, because you are respecting the courage of the other person. And I want to make sure that you understand how important that is, because especially if you're a leader and you're having a conversation with one of your team members, when we're leaders, we have a huge responsibility in that. And that responsibility is respect. And that responsibility is very deep, at least for me. And I know for Tina and Nuala, it is. And when a team member says something to me, and even if I don't like it, I still say thank you. And I will tell you that it goes a very long way. And I don't react. Even if it's something that really bothers me, I don't react. I just say thank you. Thank you for letting me know, because this is how we're going to grow. This is how I'm going to grow, and this is how you're going to grow. And so, and that's what you have to do. You have to really allow the other person to know that you care and you respect the way they feel about the situation. Okay. And so that's how a conversation would go. Now, what could possibly happen? And what will most likely happen is they will deny. They will say, it wasn't me, it never happened. They will defend. They will say, it's not my fault. It happened because I was late because there was traffic. I was late because my daughter threw up on me. I was late because, I mean, a million and one things. They will deflect, but it's not about this. And I'm going to say, love them anyway. And I'm going to leave you with this. I think that's so important is we are not our behaviors. And we get attached by our behaviors. We get judged by our behaviors, but we are not our behaviors. Because if somebody followed me around and judged me for some of my behaviors, I wouldn't be happy about that. And so that's what we have to think about our team is they are not their behaviors, they are their potential. And when we're having those conversations, we have to have the conversation with their potential. And I think that's really important. So we have an amazing leaders lab coming up. And what a leaders lab is if you haven't been part of a leaders lab, it is a circle. It's like a round table. So imagine a round table on Zoom where we read, we study, we're studying deep communication, and we get the opportunity each week to talk with each other about that study. And so we're using a book called Everyone Communicates, Few Connect. Plus, we're also using a lot of the material that we have learned through the years. I've been really immersed in communication and the study of fierce conversations for the past 20 years. And so I will bring that in. We're really, like Tina said, studying intelligence conversations. And so we will bring work from that book in and a lot of our own experiences. And the best thing about a group, a lab like this is you learn from peer to peer. So when people come into the group and they bring their experiences with them, right? Then you get to learn through their experiences. And there is nothing like that. There is nothing like that. So this peer-to-peer learning is really what elevates each of us. And not only are you growing, we're growing, which is amazing because I think in the past few years that we have done these, we do them 4 times a year. In the past few years, every time we come out, we learn more and more about the process. So you can take a picture, you can go on our page. I believe it's $249 and we're doing 2 for 1 right now. So you can bring one of your leaders. You could bring 4 people in your company if you want. This is going to be very special to bring someone or at least a couple people in your company, because I believe that this is the number one thing in our companies right now that needs to be focused on. It is the number one thing that would make our team unite, is if we can come together on this topic of communication. So Tina and Nuala, do you have anything to add? I know this is going to be starting May 15th and we'll go to, I believe, June
the 26th, Christine.
June the 26th.
Yeah. I'm just going to post the link also in the feed. That was wonderful, Christine. That was a lot of great information that you delivered in that short space of time. And that's why I think it's so powerful that we're bringing that into, it's an addition to, what we already know. And it's to kind of, give you tools. There's lots of tools. It's going to be an 80-page workbook, guys, that people are going to get to, to every week you're going to learn the lessons, you're going to be able to apply them. We come back the following week. And Christine, as she says, has been in this conversation of communication for the last 20 years. And there's no better person than can teach you how to get curious and really ask those questions that to your team. And, you know, you bring it at home as well. So it's going to be at 7 p.m. and we're going to meet on Zoom. And it's going to be 7 p.m. May the 15th through June the 26th. And we will not be meeting on Memorial Weekend. So we'll get that weekend off to practice communication with our family around the barbecue or whatever you do on Memorial Weekend. But it's a great workshop and it's something that keeps coming up again and again, right, Tina? So we hear that every time we do something, it's people come into our workshops for different reasons. We're calling them leaders labs. So getting in there, really kind of workshopping it out so that you get time to do the work, which is really important.
And I remember, you know, when I worked, Jamie is no longer with us anymore. She passed away. But when I worked with her for 20 years, one of the things that I would do is, because I didn't know, and I don't know about Nuala or you or Tina, but I didn't know how to have these conversations. I didn't know how to hold somebody accountable. I didn't know. And what I would do is I would get on the phone with her and say, this is what happened. And what do I do? And so she would walk me through the process and we would role play. And until I really learned, like by doing this, and this is, I think, so important because we think that we're supposed to know. We think now that we've been, all of a sudden we become a salon owner or a business owner, like, oh, here you go. You're supposed to know this. And I just want to put it out there to you that the only way to know and the only way to get good at this is practice. And you already know this because you've been practicing haircutting and you've been practicing color and you've been practicing your skill for a long time. But unless you practice this and you make it a craft, it won't get easier. And so this, I believe, is going to be a workshop that's going to help you through those hard conversations.
Yeah, we had a lot of feedback here in the chat too, and it's not just for salon owners and leaders, it's also for school leaders as well.
Yeah.
Because this is something that we need to give.
I think it's for anyone, to be honest.
Professionals. It is. I was thinking of all kinds of business owners that need to be in on this and business leaders, but it's our future professionals. They need this to help them to get through school. They want to know that they're safe and they want to know that they're cared about. And so there's many, many students that drop from our programs across the nation and all cosmetology schools. And this could be the difference maker. This could be the difference maker. So this is a leadership revolution and we're ready. Come on in with peer-to-peer. We want to hear what you have. So thank you everyone for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. You girls, you did an amazing job. I love listening to you both tonight, really.
Likewise. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Christine. And have a great night. And just comment if you're listening to the recording. Thank you so much. Just comment below. And the links are in the chat. And I've posted them on the page and we'll be emailing it out to people who've had their email. But we're super excited to kick this off next Monday at 7 p.m.
Absolutely. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Take care. Bye.